Welcome, welcome, welcome. Very close to finishing up our round of online interviews we've collected so far. We have many in-person interviews coming throughout the month of July, throughout the month of August, maybe into beyond that, but at least out to August. June and August are still packed with interviews. Today, we're going to be talking about a conversation we had with J.B. Shurk, who's a freedom-minded, anti-establishment, sometimes unorthodox, committed generalist, and a proud American from Daniel Boone country. He's definitely conservative, if you haven't picked up. And he wrote for the American Thinker and the Federalist. He wrote this article. The Union is not a suicide pact by J.B. Shurk. So again, a conservative writing in a very conservative magazine. And I wanted to see what he thought of about political division in America. And this was the article. The Union is not a suicide pact. And here's what he said in that article. From my point of view, never have so many Americans been so consciously aware that things must change. The federal government's response to the 9/11 Islamic terrorist attacks has been an endless war and the construction of a national security surveillance state that now targets Americans as domestic enemies. Its response to mass communication through social media has been the implementation of state-sponsored censorship. Its response to widespread calls for border security has been mass sponsorship of illegal immigration. Its response to Americans' rising demands for personal freedom has been a COVID lockdown, a centrally directed economy, and declaration of war against white supremacy. As Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius pithily observed, the object of life is not to be on the side of the majority, but to escape finding oneself in the ranks of the insane. More Americans are choosing sanity and refusing to go away. That's the kind of progress I can get behind. After all, the Union is not a suicide pact. Either the federal government should abide by the U.S. Constitution or it should go away. So I asked J.B. Shurk, do you think political polarization naturally gets better in the future? Is there any reason to believe our polarization resolves itself? Political polarization is itself natural. That's why I believe so strongly in limited government and expansive personal liberty. Otherwise, whichever political faction holds the reins of power will always be seen as a threat to those political factions without power. It is also why I believe society, not government, is the more just laboratory for natural social change. Wherever government agents utilize their monopoly on the legitimate use of force to change the way people think and behave, there will always be some part of the population that disagrees so fervently that conflict between the people and the state becomes inevitable. The problem we have today is that government insists on controlling every bit of the public sphere. It has gone far beyond the scope of ordered liberty government and inserted itself into all private relationships that traditionally form society. In other words, it has made everything that was once private now overwhelmingly political. There are no signs that the government will recognize that it has become the source of society's problems. There are also no signs that an ever-growing government will choose to relinquish new powers or constrain itself in the future. There are no signs that government will soon remember that its chief purpose for existing is to protect and preserve personal liberty. Given all this, political polarization in the United States will only get worse. Definitely a very hardcore anti-federal stance, but he's not wrong. A lot of these things are happening. The federal government continues to expand. The federal government never likes giving up power. And it's interesting to see that here's a conservative writing on the conservative side. We've been interviewing liberal professors, but here's a conservative writer, and he's saying political polarization in America is only going to get worse. That's from this author of this conservative publication. Again, another data point, just something to absorb. We'll be back with one more.